Going toward the sunset of time, I'm traveling the highway home, leaving this world of sin far behind. I'm traveling the highway home, traveling the highway home, traveling the highway home. Narrow the way, but thank God I can say I'm traveling the highway home. Well, old Satan said that I'd never be traveling the highway home. But when I resisted, he had to flee. I'm traveling the highway home. Yeah, traveling the highway home. Yeah, traveling the highway home. Well, narrow the way, but thank God I can say I'm traveling the highway home. Sometimes the road gets weary and long, traveling the highway home. But in my heart, there's always a song, traveling the highway home. Traveling the highway home. Traveling the highway home. Though narrow the way, thank God I can say I'm traveling the highway home. Jesus is my highway. Yes. Jesus is my highway home. Jesus is my highway home. Though narrow the way, thank God I can say Jesus is my highway home. Jesus is my highway home. Jesus is my highway home. Though narrow the way, thank God I can say Jesus is my highway home.
Yay!
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
Internet show.
Amen.
Ducks eat bread.
They do. They like it.
Approaches are, that's where the alignment is between Graham and I.
Okay, so what is bringing down the fourth wall project, Graham?
A terrible spell, and part of that spell, the humans have the campfire circuitry. For whatever reason, probably because it. So like, the television engages that, and like that's when your tribal elders are passing on information and stuff. So like those things are hijacked and make everybody feel like they're audience. And like if you watch characters in series that do break the fourth wall, and that's what the fourth wall I'm referencing when I do it. It's the wall that behind which you are audience and not a human. So
okay.
Hashtag paintball for Jesus, @GrimGrizz, hashtag break the fourth wall.
So like you do like break the fourth wall that doesn't exist and be like,
break the fourth wall a little bit.
You really helped me break the fourth wall. Like, you know, it's just people.
Good poetry is definitely it's definitely always trying to break the fourth wall.
Always tried, as Grim Gris says, to break the fourth wall to the degree that I can. Yeah, poor Mookie is no longer with us. Mookie had a hard little life. He was a rescue dog. He was cute. He bit people regularly. He was ornery. He was surly. He had little dog complex, and he lost one eye, and then he was almost ready to lose the other eye. And poor little fella. We did what we could for him, but he went on. I don't know what kind of judgment day he'll see. You know, the cartoons say all dogs go to heaven, but if you meet Mookie, don't put your hand down there too fast, because oh, he's so cute. Don't touch him; he'll bite you. Sounds like Grizz. Oh, Federecci. Grizz has ways of making you pay. So welcome to the Friday morning Bridges of Meaning question and answer. I put the link to the question area in the notes. There's a good amount of questions, but there's still some room for more. I'll try not to delay too much. Poor Andrew still wants to know, what is God doing up there? Andrew, whatever he wants. There's a link to Joseph kind of gets the first question. First question is usually a good spot to be, because I spent a half hour on it, but I don't know if I'll spend a half hour on this one. Is the self in IFS essentially an internalization of the Neoplatonic view from nowhere, an egoless self where the parts have dropped out and all there is pure consciousness, the one sending out emanations, vibes of curiosity, compassion, courage, calm, non-judgmental to the parts to find something akin to transcendentals, but for the self? I think that's probably true. I think part of the weakness of IFS is the self for IFS is sort of the frame, and you always need a frame. We cannot process without a frame because of how we are and what consciousness is for us. And so the self for IFS, I think, functions as a frame. And I think what you described there is probably for a lot of people what it is. And I don't think that, I haven't caught up on all of John Vervaeke's recent videos on IFS, but I really should. So, I'm not going to spend a half hour on that question. What is the best book on the Protestant Reformation? I always have trouble with hierarchies. I guess I'm an inveterate Protestant. And The most recent really good book that I've read is Carlos Ayer's Reformations, which is a fat book. But I really enjoyed it because I think he was fair to all sides and he sees from all sides, whereas most of the books I read about the Protestant Reformation growing up were propagandistic, indoctrinating me to my tribe, which is not a bad thing. You need a frame, you need a tribe, you need a self. But if people ask me today to recommend a book on the Protestant Reformation, I recommend Reformations by Carlos Ayer, E-I-R-E. Always looks like Erie to me, but apparently it's Ayer. Still waiting for those videos from or those audios from that conference there, Cale. I still gotta Cale and I have so much catching up to do. So the dates for this estuary retreat in Connecticut. Oh, I should probably look them up lest I give you the wrong dates. There'll be sign up information at some point coming up soon because the date is approaching soon. See, this is what happens when I have to organize something, is there are too many other interesting things to do. So there are still tickets available for the Northwest Estuary starting next week, in fact. So no live stream next week. I'll be at the North Estuary, estuarying it up with the likes of Nathan or Nate Heil and Grim Grizz and just all of the peeps. Is that Chad the Alcoholic will be there. It's going to be a great happening up there in Olympia, Washington. So super looking forward to next weekend. Unfortunately, Jared's birthday is the 14th, so I'm going to miss that. But sorry, Jared. Maybe we can talk Jared and his wife to come up to that. That would be fun. That would be fun, Jared. If you're watching, think about it. But yeah, October on the East Coast, October 17, 18, and 19 will probably start Thursday afternoon and end Saturday afternoon. So I can have my Sunday at Whitensville Christian Reformed Church at Pleasant Street. And go to the church of my mother and my father for a while and my grandparents. So it's always good going to Pleasant Street CRC in Whitensville, Massachusetts. Big shout out to them. So that's what's coming up. And then I still have yet to plan an event for Sunday, November 10. I'll be back in Seattle. And so I'm going to do an estuary event Sunday, December 10. Don't know where, don't know what, don't know who, but that will be in Seattle, Sunday, September 10. Or I'm sorry, it's not September, November 10. November 10. So got some events coming up. Definitely have to check out the new anthology. Some of you who are on No Wait, No Ads saw that I had a wonderful conversation with Nolan. And let's see. It's really crappy watching. So if you look at, you can find it on Amazon already, Writers of Meaning, an anthology on community with authors Valerie Flynn, Josh Hunt, John Van Donk, Julian, Chad, Ann. I think that's probably Chad the Alcoholic. And 5 more. What is an estuary? How is alchemy connected to community? Will humanity survive an alien attack? What will the survivors do in the aftermath? I haven't read it yet, but I bought it and I'm going to read it. It's on my Kindle. So that's around. Thank you, Valerie. Benny W. I understand you studied engineering as undergrad. Yep, my freshman year at Calvin College. 2 questions. Would you consider yourself a math person over and against a language and literary person as far as gifting academic interests, at least early in life? I am a routine person, and that certain level of math, which is mostly calculation, I think I liked that as a routine. But the higher I got in math, the more I basically started getting into more advanced math. So first I did engineering and then I did math. And I very quickly saw this was not for me. And I was also taking history at the time, and I really loved history. So I stuck with history. So I think more language and literary, even though I'm dyslexic, which means, I have tremendous, not envy, because that means I hate the people, but I really wish I could devour books quickly. Part of the reason that I think I do so much audio stuff is because I'm such an auditory learner. Doing the Suzuki method of violin in my youth probably reinforced that auditory side of me. So, I'm very auditory. So, that's probably why I'm on YouTube. Do you think the nature of the role of pastor lends itself better to language literary type people instead of math people? Yes, I think so. That isn't to say others can't do it. There are, of course, this has been studied. For example, there's a book out basically about introverts who try to be pastors. And there are some really wonderful pastors who are introverts, but it's a little harder. It's kind of helpful to be an extrovert. It's kind of helpful to like people, babies and dogs if you're a pastor, because you're going to wind up spending a lot of time listening to people. So I think, I don't know, maybe math people get more frustrated because they want solutions. And most of the time with pastoring, there's no solution to most of the people that I'm with. So, or should it, yeah. And what is a math person? I don't know, because you could make an argument that a math person is very theoretical. Depends, because math is, like I said, to a degree, it's computation, because computer was a word that was before we had these little boxes that do things. There were people that really enjoyed, working the algorithms and coming up with answers. And then there are mathematicians who are very theoretical, almost Platonic. And so, it's, was Aquinas a math person? Yeah. And then when you see, Mark, I tried listening to your Trinity video, but it was really soft. And so, I don't know. Or you decide to spend 30 hours a week writing a sermon. Yeah, I don't spend 30 hours a week on my sermons. Maybe it shows. So anyway, I'm distracted. See how ADHD I am? Aaron, hey, Paul, why do you think people have a low tolerance for transgressions? I'm not sure they do. Some people absolutely love them. People have a low tolerance for the transgressions that other people, that other people commit that annoy them. They have a very low tolerance for that. It's about logs and specs, boys and girls. It's about logs and specs. OCD meme curator. Answering the question. Jordan Peterson seems to think that as a result of high emotionality or low risk tolerance. Back to Aaron. Interesting that you think the coronation of getting upset easily to low risk. Okay. So there's discussion in here. Why does Paul of Tarsus warn women not to chase after knowledge? Oh, I would have to look more closely at that verse. A lot depends on, I think, what Paul was specifically addressing to a church. Now, that's not a dodge. I think in any given circumstance, in any specific situation, some of us would recommend that men not chase after knowledge. Part of what's difficulty is kind of what we do with the Bible. We sort of lift it up and put it up there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can get distortions that way. Is this still a wonderful gift for you? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Anyway. So look, I'm cruising through questions today. I mean, I might open the link and we might do live questions and answer. I've been dropping into the Bridges of Meaning voice chats yesterday. I did again and just really enjoying them. The only difficulty is that I usually do it if I'm like fiddling around with the office, like I'm moving cameras around and trying some new configurations. And so it's like, oh, I can listen to some stuff while this. And Eric Weinstein was driving me crazy in that Chris Williamson thing. I basically approach all conversations like I'm talking to a large language model. It's like, oh, Eric. But there is some good stuff in there. Richard Rowland said, you got to go back and listen to more of that. So I'm listening to more of it. But sometimes I just want to listen to you guys talk. I was listening to Chad's channel this morning, and it was a little bit of vanity because Chad was riffing on one of my favorite videos too. And although I don't go back and listen to it, and Chad and Teo and Michael Satori were just having an awesome conversation. I might clip it and repost it because I really loved what Teo had to say about how he learned Christianity from people who asked for daily bread, and that's what they were really asking for. It wasn't like this theoretical thing when I have pension and health insurance and food and money in the bank, please give us our daily bread. When, and Tyo makes the point that they didn't know where their bread was coming tomorrow. So that was an awesome conversation that Chad had this morning. So sometimes I just like listening to you guys, and Luke hasn't been able to do his morning things, and I usually go there. And so it's like, oh gosh, I got to go back into Discord. But what's nice about Discord is that it is not online and it is not recorded. So we can talk about some things with some liberty on the Bridges of Meaning voice chat, and especially if people turn on their cameras, which I think is a good thing. Although you need good bandwidth to do that, because someone was asking a question yesterday and he's like, oh, I should turn on my camera. He was working on his phone on a wireless connection. He turned on the camera and the voice went to crap. So anyway, I'm so distracted this morning. This is quite simple for a biblical scholar like yourself. I'm not a scholar, I'm a pastor. Scholars, their primary focus is books and literature. Pastors' primary focus is people. Pastors have to play with scholarship, but we're not fundamentally scholars. It's an important distinction. I'm not an academic. Clearly, this is a prediction of what would happen 2,000 years in the future after the invention of the internet. Oh, I understand. You're answering So the question and answer has now taken on a life of its own, and people are answering questions sent to me, which is fine. I don't care. The powers that be at Bridges of Meaning might punish you for that, though. So, but we don't have Joey around anymore to do things. Amen, Aaron. I love Aaron. Aaron's so freaking smart, and he's also humble and kind, and that's you nailed it, Aaron. You nailed it, Aaron. I realized the other day that I don't know if I ever finished posting all of the videos. Maybe I did. I have to go back and check from the Breakwater event 2023. Aaron gave a talk on Nietzsche that was just awesome. I mean, I've tried to get into Nietzsche in the past, and I'm too ADHD and I get distracted because Nietzsche is, and I need often a biography really helps me, even though biographies have their own points of view, obviously. And Aaron, in that talk that he gave at the Breakwater event in 2023, okay. Now I even did one of these great courses things on Nietzsche, and it's just like, this isn't helping, but Aaron was just super helpful, and he just really contextualized Nietzsche for me. And the European corner of the corner is so good, and in so many ways so unrewarded. I mean, they have that time difference to contend with, and they don't have. It's just harder to get traction in Europe than it is in America, with this big one country and one network and one language and all of this wealth. So the Donk is in Europe right now, I think, still, and he's starting new estuary groups. So I think there'll be a special reward for the European estuarians, because they've had it rougher. So yeah, I praise God for Aaron. Who's got a question coming up too? Good. They're still answering questions in here. Why is information not sufficient for transformation? Pineapple pizza. Great question. Because I'm not even putting this up here. There he is, pineapple pizza right here. Great question. Because, and I'm going to talk about this. Poor Karen, she's sweating over her talk that she's given up in Olympia. And I'm just kind of batting it around in my head. And I might not even make a PowerPoint because I'm just ready to go. And I've got a limited amount of time, but I could riff on that topic for 2 hours without breaking a sweat. And I'm so freaking ADHD. So being a scholar is a wonderful thing. And if you don't have dyslexia, if you love books, if you're an introvert, be a scholar instead of a pastor. It's fine. But there's information in people and communities. I'll give you a little preview of what I'm going to say in Olympia. I remember when I first heard Jordan Peterson say, Jung and Freud interpreted dreams. If you read some Jung, you'll see that, especially this quasi-autobiography of Jung's. He and Freud were doing dream interpretation. And Peterson made the observation, there's information in each of us that our conscious mind doesn't know. And so you do dream interpretation to try and get at that information. Now that should drive T. Grog absolutely to rant in the hive mind like a banshee. When you just think about that, because dreams are so weird and seemingly so chaotic, but Freud and Jung and others wanted to wade into dreams to mine for information, in a sense, from an emissarian perspective. And I thought, he's right. And when I realized that, I began to understand that information, formal knowledge in terms of the forms, goes way deeper than the emissarian fallacy wishes to concede. And that's why sort of the emissarian capture of the word information to reduce it to, let's say, data is such a tell in terms of Ian McGilchrist's don't poke the tea grog. Oh, come on. We all know he's a super nice guy. Yeah, I heard Chris did him. And I've not done anything with his channel much, but I do watch it. And I've got thoughts. And one of my very best sources for YouTube content, she sent me one of his recent videos and said, oh, this guy's better than some other people who are doing dating advice. So, it's so funny because Freddie watches these live streams sometimes, but he's calling me right in the middle of it. Maybe I should take his call. I should. Hey, Freddie, I just got to warn you, I'm live streaming right now and you're on the live stream. Freddie, you're on the live stream.
Hey, what's going on?
See, he's on the live stream. Freddie, I'm doing a live stream right now. I can't talk.
Okay, can I come by later?
No, I'm busy all day. I'll see you Sunday.
Oh, man, I don't have no money.
I already gave you money.
I know, but I got my hair done, and it costs $10. Can I please come at 3 o'clock to the church?
Yeah, I don't have any money on me, Fred. I don't have any money on me.
Can we go to Bel Air later tonight?
No.
Okay. Am I really on the live stream?
You are really on the live stream, Fred. You are really on the live stream.
What are you guys talking about?
I'm talking about the fallacy of the word information.
Okay, I'll see you Sunday.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I'm a pastor. I'm not a scholar. Does he have PayPal? You know, back when this whole thing started, I seriously thought of camera focus. Come on, focus. I seriously thought of trying to put a firewall between Freddie and all of this. I'm glad I didn't, but there are moments. There are moments. Fast Freddie D. There he is. So my every week estuary has plenty of non-TLC people in it. And the beautiful thing about an in-life estuary that is not recorded, and especially once you get sort of mostly the same people every week, that people's trust levels go up. And then they start sharing stories from their past. And here's the thing about old people, people who have lived 60, 70, 80, 90 years. They've lived in a different world. And so much of their world cannot be captured easily because there is so much information and there is so much diversity. So we have some people in our group that are absolutely tremendous sources of information because they have been formed by contexts and communities that had so much information that was beneath the consciousness waterline. And over time, that information sort of comes up. And then if you pay attention to it and you sort of recognize different communities, you can see different things. And so one of the things, I can't talk too much, and I don't know if the Northwest Estuary stuff is going to be recorded or not, but so I don't want to give too many details about specific individuals that are still alive because, I don't want them to suddenly shut up and stop sharing themselves to a group because the pastor's on YouTube. $10 for a haircut is very cheap. I know the haircut was probably $15 and Freddie probably talked them down. Trust me. I should, the Freddie Fund is called the Livingstone's Benevolence Fund. And so, and I know someone out there did send a gift to me for Freddie when his mom died. And trust me, it all went to Freddie. A lot goes to Freddie. Well, I cut my own hair. It's free. I get what I pay for. So there's so much to this question. Oh no. Cycle. well, that's good because I've long since dipped into my own pocket. Some of this, oh gosh, I can't go into all the Freddie biz. Anyway, thank you, Upcycle. My wife thanks you. So I'll tell you another story. My mother doesn't listen to these things. She listened to some videos. She listened to videos if she finds interesting. But my mother managed. I've told this story before. My mother managed all the money in the family because my father would always give it away. And so, but if you went and did like pulpit supply somewhere and you'd get a little extra gift from the congregation, or if you did a funeral or something like that, where they would actually give him my money, my father got to keep that money. And then he just gave it away. It's just, you're talking to someone and, he wants a haircut. And then, why don't you let him come to church and get another $10 from you? And I manage Freddie to the best I know how, at least for Freddie's long-term interest. So anyway, so the information question is super important. Interpret however you wish, which I obviously did, though likely more relevant to the transformation of a Christian. The information, this is why, I am a Protestant, but it's not that there's nothing to something like apostolic succession. I'm just not convinced it can last 20 generations. And there's not nothing to initiation, because the point is that we pass on information to each other beneath the consciousness waterline. And there was this illustration of how Israeli intelligence figured out how to pass computer viruses through sound waves. I don't know if it's bogus or not, because when you get into the spy world, I mean, you can't trust anything, right, Grizz? We all see that Grim Grizz has a CIA deck. Where would you get such a thing? We all saw Grim Grizz sit under that sign in Florida at the Symbolic World Summit, the CIA sign. You're not fooling any of us, Grizz. We know. And all of your there is no agency stuff, he thinks he doth protest too much. So Grizz obviously isn't watching live. Doug Wilson would say, toughen up. Oh. Grip shop. Yeah, where's my hat? My hat's right behind me. It's a great hat. I love my new hat. Oh, I'm so ADHD. So yeah, information is totally right. And that's why people are formed by information face to face more than just data. It doesn't mean data can't provoke things, but the church, and this is what, the ancient churches like the Catholics and the Orthodox, and I would argue that Protestants themselves try to maintain that traditions, at least certain kinds of Protestants, that there's nothing to the fact that, we have the Bible. The Bible, it isn't Father, Son, and Holy Scripture. It's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Spirit works through the Bible, but Jesus did his work in the apostles, and the apostles did their work. Thank you, Mark. Sam selling Sam like Bishop Barron selling his Unitarian thing this week. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, Sam. Hopefully I will. I'm just way behind. The internet is putting out so many good videos lately. So yeah, we form each other, and it starts from before we are born. You formed me. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. So we form each other, and that's why we're doing it. We're doing it on video, and I think video can form more strongly sometimes than just text. Audio, because video is like audio. It's all, oh gosh, oh no, oh gosh. Well, actually, we'll probably need it. So I'm gonna. See, the difficulty is now I have to manage this stuff, and I have to say no to the Fredster, because I've got goals with this money to he's right. YouTube gets 30%. That is exactly what I am doing, Mark. That is exactly. I am keeping a man alive $10 at a time. Oh gosh, this is turning into a very unwatchable live stream, and it's all about the information. Now and this is where Grim Grizz's channel is such mind control catnip. It is. I mean, the branding. I mean, he has learned from the evil god Sept how to colonize us. And now I don't say that as a bad thing, because I do like Grizz and I do trust Grizz, but the mind control is powerful there, even in the unwatchability. So it's a big deal. More watchable. Yeah, more watchable. So stick to the point, emissarians. No, so I listened to Chad's live stream this morning, and Chad used one of his favorite intros as his outro. I stand by the door, and I don't know where Chad got that from, but it's a powerful sermon. It's a powerful message. And I've heard it before, and I listened to it again this morning. And yes, I said mind control catnip. That is exactly what I said. And, and that's what I think. So yesterday in the Discord chat room, I know it is totally annoying YouTube to have TLCers. I mean, this drove Joey crazy. To have TLCers say, what's happening here? What's going on? And they were doing that in the Bridges of Meaning live chat yesterday. But part of it is we are experiencing something. We are being formed. We are being informed. And there is, I have, and somebody said, yeah, we've watched hundreds of hours of PVK, and something of him has gotten into us. And I can't say or put it on a line or anything like that, but that's how culture works. And what's beautiful, it's not just me. Of course, it's also Vervaeke and Peugeot and Peterson, but it's also Chad and Grizz and Karen and Sam. And again, I started making lists, and that's bad because I wouldn't. Some of you are like, is he going to say my name? Is he going to say my name? Because we're all that way. And then I didn't. And please don't take offense, because there's many more names I could say, because we are all informing each other. We are all forming each other. And we're all using all of these tools to form each other. And that's despite the presence or lack of the super chats. You see, if I were a good YouTuber, if Freddie watches this, he's going to total up all this money and he's going to demand it. Freddie doesn't miss these things. You guys, and Luke Thompson, there you go. Yeah, Christian, you too. Oops, there's and Almond Tree, and there's too many of you. There's too many of you to count. And even those of you who are always in the Anselman, we've never seen Anselman's face, but Anselman is a character in this space. And of course, T-Grog, and even exiles like Nathan, or even people, self-imposed exiles like, see if I mention him, then is he back in the corner? Dum, hiding up there in Minnesota. Being just trying like heck to not let poor Mark Parker be the only lefty in the corner. So the TLC Get Rich Quick scheme works for Freddie. Oh, yeah. I wasn't going to mention his name, but you can go that way. Anyway, we are all informing each other, and it's a beautiful thing. But if someone said, well, what is the information of the TLC? And we're all, I loved the conversation I did with Chris Green. That was an amazing conversation, because he gave me a gift in that conversation. We were talking about the sophisticates and all of that. And he said, what is valued in our culture is this capacity, and it's a powerful capacity, to reduce complexity down to simplicity. That's very much Emissarianism. And this is valued in the culture. And it's a wonderful thing. Again, the emissary and the master both have their roles. But if you go too far as an emissarian, you lose the fact that you can put all kinds of batshit crazy adjectives on your mom. She was neurotic, or she was brutal, or she was neglectful, or she was crazy, but she's still your mom. And so we are forming each other in this little network. because we are giving attention to each other. And again, there's a new Jordan Peterson video out with the word God in the title. And it's like, that's not fair, but I'm skeptical. So I haven't even watched it yet. There's an amazing trigonometry video that Glenn Scrivener already, commented on with Richard Dawkins. That one, I started listening to it. That one is really good. But the truth is, if Luke Thompson is streaming in the morning when I'm emptying the dishwasher and feeding the dog and cleaning the kitchen and doing all of my little chores, I'll forsake all those other videos and watch Luke Thompson. Why? Because we're forming each other. And we're forming each other in ways that we sort of know is good. And Neil Daedalus has this, he's the one who put it into words, where he said, I'm becoming a better Christian, even with Sam the heretic. And just go through the list of scoundrels in our midst and skeptics. And you can tell that. So, yeah, it's a great question. All right, another great question. I'm sure Aaron's got a question. To what extent might the conviction that the spirit, it's another TLC question, of this little corner will transfer, have downstream effects on the culture at large, be motivated by, it's a smart guy, complex question. To what extent might the conviction that the spirit of this little corner will transfer, have downstream effects on the culture at large, be motivated by self-deception? In other words, is it wishful thinking or a genuinely reasonable belief? Yeah, there's certainly self-bias, self-deception, and so here's a problem. And this has also been at the foundation of my channel for a long time. And I talked about it. I haven't even looked at the analytics from today yet. Where's my analytics for today? I've got to see. My guess is my conversation that I had with Rob. Let's see. My conversation with Rob. Where is that? 520 views. Well, that's pretty good because he's a rando. I had a wonderful conversation with Rob. And I super enjoyed that conversation. Now, my conversation with Chris, I also enjoyed, but I had sort of a sarcastic, clever title on that. That's still in No Wait, No Ads. It'll be coming out probably Saturday or something. But it won't get a lot of traction because it's not sexy. But we do talk about the corner. But right away, and this is from another person that's in my estuary. She grew up in Mississippi in the Jim Crow South. She's an older woman now. And she tells amazing stories about her community that she grew up in and the family that she grew up in. She was like the youngest of, I might not have the number right, 11 children in a 2-bedroom house. But the family stayed together, the father and the mother. And she talks about that community, and she talks about what life was like and that little, in terms of the current American imaginary, she was the victim of brutal oppression because she was African American in the Jim Crow South. And she was. But if you listen to her talk about the community she grew up in, does she know she was poor? Yes, she knows she was poor. Does she know that there was systemic discrimination against her because of the color of her skin? Absolutely, she knows that far better than I ever will. She understands all of those things, but she also understands that there was blessing and there was goodness and there was beauty. And, now she's an older African-American woman living in Sacramento, California. And she sees ways that our much fairer, much wealthier, much more just situation is less than some of the riches that she enjoyed. That is a story that is hard to tell in our culture. And so, for very good reasons, and some not so good, It's hard to get headway in a story like that. Chris Arnott was making the same point about when he walks around the streets of Nairobi, when if anybody would say, if I have a chance to go live in a Dallas suburb, should I? He'd say, yes. The electricity stays on all the time. The streets are clean. Even if you're poor, there's probably a food bank and you can probably get medical treatment at a hospital and there are social services. Yes, you should go there. But you may very well be a sadder person in the suburbs of Dallas than living poor on the streets of Nairobi, because you have community there. And I've seen this all my life. Part of the blessing of growing up in a community that was deeply welcomed by African Americans in Patterson, especially being there as a child, is as a child, you do come in under the radar. And people will say things in front of children they won't say in front of adults, but children have ears and children remember. And so I got a chance to taste African American culture in a way that, you know, Dallas, don't live in Dallas. And it was such a gift given to me by these people. And so, frankly, and I've said this many times, the TLC belongs to God, okay? It belongs to God. My channel belongs to God. I broke 30,000 subs. You know, Christian Baxter said it couldn't be done. He really didn't, but, you know, it's a joke. Moved to Tbilisi, Georgia, or near Village, that's right. This all belongs to God. And what part of what we want in fame is to be seen. And there's a lot of really great things that happens with fame. Look at Jordan Peterson. You know, wealth, attention, riches. And Jordan will tell you almost all of his in-person interactions with people are positive. And yet he's got a bodyguard. Do not despise being small. It is a gift. There are gifts to smallness. There are gifts to greatness too. And so if God gives you greatness, if God gives you wealth, if God gives you fame, praise God for it and do the best you can with it, because it's probably a difficult task. And that isn't to say that being small isn't difficult, because being small means this is a fight I always have with Federecci. No, but responsibility when you're small looks different than responsibility when you're great. And that is part of the blessings of smallness. So I don't know what God is going to do with this little corner. And if it always stays little and is forgotten, praise God. We have all enjoyed its goodness. A tiny portion of people are remembered generations after their death, and at least half of them are remembered for bad things. So if God is giving you joy in this little corner, now part of this desire for it's going to be bigger, it's going to make CNN or the New York Times, or it'll get Elon Musk's attention, or YouTube will have to ban us because it's so good we're destroying its monetization scheme, or part of sort of the desire for that is not a bad thing either, because it's the quest for meaning. But you know, it's like bridges of meaning. It goes up and down. Marriages go up and down. Communities go up and down. It's a very healthy thing in this world. So if I do this for another 20 years and I never break 100,000 subs and get that nice little silvery plaque from YouTube, I'm A-okay with that most days. I've got my temptations too. But I again, I know that I'm harder to reach. I'm harder to get on. It's harder to get on my channel than Chad's channel. And there's a loss there. And it's harder to get my attention than it is to get Chad's attention. And there's a loss there. So, if you believe that small people are loved by God and not forgotten, then the all that this world holds dear and holds up in the sky, hold it lightly. Michigan man Sam, who said he can't be here. Is there something about the openness of TLC that churches can learn from? Churches are super open often. That's part of the right now in CRC Voices. So a portion of the Christian Reformed Church is getting exiled by the last 3 synods. And they're angry and they're hurt and it's ugly. And they want to be open and inclusive, which is a wonderful characteristic. And then we talked about the fact that many things aren't open to certain people for all kinds of reasons, and some of them good. So it's a good thing that there's a lot of things. Again, in that conversation I had with Rob that I posted this morning, we talked about a lot of these things because he had a lot of questions. And I do think that part of the reason I think churches should have estuaries and estuaries church adjacent is because I think it's a healthy thing for a church to have. And I know many have told me, but my church doesn't want to have that because they think that should have a clear gospel message in it, according to how they understand that. And okay, but so then I say it's a pastoral care thing. And estuary is super open, but some would say not open enough. It's always that way. Can you reasonably disagree with how applicable it is to a modern context? Several Christian denominations do. But if we're discussing 1 Timothy 2, the passage was a liturgical instruction to not general prohibition on learning, which isn't something. Oh, he's answering Valerie's question. I should pay more attention to that. But in all fairness, American churches are really struggling to be as open as possible. Churches in the first few centuries of their existence, some of them in some ways were sort of like secret societies. I mean, I remember reading Peter Brown's biography of Augustine, and he said, you just didn't walk into a church. I mean, their culture wars were fierce and bloody, and so you may or may not get let in. We live in an amazing time where doors are remarkably open, and the church is trying to, and part of that is because of churches, because of Jesus, because of the gospel, and churches are still trying to do that. Peterson makes this point all the time, and he's right. You can't be, and so does Peugeot, you can't be open to everything. That's not healthy. What you need to have is the right kind. Your skin isn't open to everything. It's called a wound. It needs to be a semi-permeable membrane. Now, what is being filtered? There's the trick. And I praise God that we have a diversity of churches that filter a diversity of things. No church you find in this world is a perfect church. They do not exist. And even really lousy churches can be good on some things, and really wonderful churches will have blind sides. So I think estuary is a wonderful tool. It's not a perfect tool. Another question from Aaron. Thoughts on the new Jordan Peterson, Jack Symes conversation, including Jordan Peterson's characterization of himself as an A. See, now I'm going to watch it. There's been a new frontier. Jordan has a new identity, an existential. That's really good. Now I got to listen to it. So more to come. Maybe I'll make a video. There's so many videos I want to get to. There's so many good ones out there. I still haven't even touched Jonathan Peugeot and the Cosmic Skeptic. There's a lot to say about that conversation. I'm still not done with Richard Rowland's Purgatory and the Irish. Oh, there's so much good stuff in that. I'm so behind and I'll never catch up. That's the way it is. Yosef. Oh, he's answering. Okay. Junker Shane. What are the economic consequences of conservatives retaking the CRC? Do the people who work at the CRC headquarters in Calvin College go to churches that are affirming of homosexuality? If these churches are disciplined or leave the, what will be the CRC deep state reaction to this? The deep state reaction is happening already. Yes, there is going to be I've written a bunch of stuff on Voices about this. The departures have already started. And it's going to take about 2 years for a lot of those churches to leave. And that was sort of the clock that Senate set. And it's a good clock. And there's a lot of complexity to this. Now, unlike the Reformed Church in America, Christian Reformed churches own their property. Now, you might have a court battle if it's really 50-50 in the church, to stay CRC or to leave the CRC. You really don't want to take it out. So there are going to be cases. The CRC is big enough that there's going to be cases that there's going to be a messy divorce in a local church. Hopefully not. But yeah, there's going to be denominational employees that will leave. And Calvin is going to lose some professors and probably some high profile ones. The video I made this week, I think Calvin's going to have to really think about its mission. Now, one of the books I bought this week, I buy books and I think I can stop at any time, but I need a 12-step program for book buyers. This was written by the professor of the former president of Calvin Seminary, who was also a professor of Christian Reformed church history. And I don't think the book's in print anymore. I got a used copy, which was actually signed by the author. The CRC is that small. And fortunately, it's not a marked up copy. So I scanned the whole thing so I can read it on my Kindle, basically. And so I can have it anywhere I go. I like that with books, having them wherever I go, but sometimes you only have a hard copy. So Henry Kuiper was banner editor from something like 1929 to 1962 when he died. This dude formed the Christian Reformed Church. And it was in the 60s, like with many other things, that the Christian Reformed Church became a different thing and a good thing. And that was the Christian Reformed Church I grew up in. And that was my father graduated Calvin Seminary in 1960 and started working at Northside Chapel in 1960. So there's been a lot of transformation that has happened in the Christian Reformed Church over these years. One of the videos I didn't make this week had a congregational meeting in a conservative church in Edgerton, Minnesota, where some of the winners of the fight were talking about the denomination. Hey, Job. Oh, okay, good. So, and this is what I say about the previous thing about the TLC getting too big. Winning is a dangerous thing for your soul. It's wonderful to win. It's great to win. Winning can be a wonderful thing. But be careful, winners. Losing is a little easier on your soul it's harder on your heart and it's harder on your spirit, but it's easier on your soul because you're not tempted. There's certain temptations that losers don't have to bear. No, we are in a sea change in the Christian Reformed Church. And whereas the transformation to the Christian Reformed Church that I knew from this one that my grandparents knew is a fast one. I mean, and again, COVID accelerated all sorts of things. It wasn't quite as fast, but it came up fast on the exiles, as I call them in the CRC. But this one never really died completely. And in some ways, part of what's happening in the Christian Reformed Church is in some ways, but not all, sort of back to this era in the Christian Reformed Church. So, yeah, people are going to lose their jobs. People are going to walk away. There's going to be real loss in this. And I grieve that loss because many of those people are my friends and they're hurting. And I weep with them because it really sucks to lose. But I think God will do a new thing through them. God has not abandoned them. I think and I think about people. I think I hope they don't join the RCA. I hope they start sort of affirming CRC. And I want to see what they're doing with it. Some of those Grand Rapids churches are thriving right now, and I want them to thrive. So I tend to suspect what happened was inevitable, but I think good things can come from it, but hard things will come from it. That's life. That's what happens with every winning and losing. There's always good things and hard things. So, yeah. Well, the deep state CRC reaction to this, well, that's the thing, is that the CRC establishment had ways of winning even when they should have lost. That's what institutional power is. That's what being an establishment means. And the establishment was completely overturned in 3 synods. I mean, completely. I mean, brutally. But now the conversation has already shifted to what's next. And there's what's next on 2 fronts. What's next is what will the exiles do? And the other is what will happen to the moderates. They came after all of the lefties. What happens when they come after me? We'll see. Tad the tangerine. I'm just reaching for questions. Please forgive me. We in the TLC even get some of your experience shared around struggles you've had with faith, because what triggered you seeking through CSI. Chad, I watched your live stream this morning. I heard you talk about that. And I tell stories individually and personally that I don't tell on the internet, because some things are not appropriate for the internet right now. Maybe someday they'll be appropriate for a book. They're shared often in confidence. So Chad, when we see if you and I get alone and you want to hear more about that, I'm happy to share it with you. But it'll be shared in confidence. And then here's the thing about receiving something in confidence. Then you got to hold it. Sometimes things in confidence slip out. It's horrible when something in confidence slips out. Oh, it's horrible. So yeah, be careful about the secrets you really want to know, because sometimes they can be heavy and then they have to be carried. So it's one of these deep mysteries of life. So also for CW Weeks, will you ever do a Keller tribute video? I'm getting closer. So one of the videos that I didn't do this week, let's see, YouTube, Aaron Wren. Aaron Wren's conversation with John Tyson was outstanding. And, Keller left his mark on a generation, and Keller left his mark on me. And Keller, there's a video on the internet that's supposed to be something of a hit piece on Keller, because it basically shows that, he's like me. He grew up in sort of this, it wasn't just the CRC that had this urban, this ministry to the city things. And then some of these people, and some of them are the PCA, some of them are very conservative on women in office, and conservative on, just look up Harvey Kahn. Harvey Kahn was such an interesting guy, and he taught in Westminster East. And I remember his book was assigned by Roger Greenway, is the father of a friend of mine. He used to teach at Westminster, and then he taught at Calvin. And he's the father of a friend of mine. I should have Scott on my channel sometime. I've asked Scott to be on. Scott has a bigger church in West Michigan and has to be a little bit more careful about what he does. Ren's been on the channel. But I remember going after some of Harvey Kahn's stuff in his book, and Roger didn't like that so much. That happened a little dust up at seminary. So Keller's story was formation for who he became. And what's interesting to me is that some of the Keller critics that are out there, I know why they're criticizing him, and I completely understand. It's some more culture war by proxy stuff that's happening. But I'm still deeply indebted to the man, and call me a squish. I'm okay with that. If it requires me to be a squish, to be as quarter as effective as Tim Keller, I'll take it. So I never know how to say your name, dude. QW Quirtiopic. Is there a topic you'd like to see academic economists cover in their work? I pay very little attention to academic economists, either in general or specifically with regard to this topics discussed in the TLC. I have no clue. Maybe CW has an answer, but he's not in the corner anymore. Is he in the chat? Oh, where are we? Pineapple Pizza, another one. Good week to get your questions in. Can't take the credit for the question. It was during an estuary. He's answering. Any insights into the current state of meta-modern Christianity? Well, it all depends on the definition. So obviously, we've gone around and around a little bit in terms of that definition, and some see meta-modern Christianity. I'm very much more Team Grail Country on this one. That meta-modern Christianity, part of the enchantment of meta-modern Christianity is that you believe in miracles. And if your enchantment is merely psychological, I think it's knockoff enchantment. So I think meta-modern is overcoming some of the blind sides of modernity. Others want to keep what, in my opinion, are some of those blind sides. So it's a definitional fight, and it's too new a term to kind of understand who wins the definitional fight, because the definitional fight is sort of won in the spirit world when the definition settles, at least for a generation in a community. And even if I've lost definitional fights even the time I've made YouTube. My preferred term for wokeness is progressive liberationism. That's my preferred term. Woke is a little bit more mimetic, but I still like my progressive liberationism. I think it's more descriptive, but I lost. What are your thoughts on the need for modernizing the faith? Well, again, it depends on, part of the difficulty with the word modernity is sometimes people understand it to mean now, And sometimes people understand it to be a particular expression of the Enlightenment that gelled in the last 200 to 400 years in Western civilization. And so I would argue that we are getting into, if we're going to use that word, a meta-modern frame right now. But it's, I mean, these things are just so diffuse that it's hard to get at them. So, because we need something for post-modernity, and we don't quite know what that is. And I think our understanding of post-modernity is gelled. And I think find YouTube. I think TLC is peak YouTube. I really do. I see all these other ways. Google wants to make money from YouTube. I get it. I do not think Mr. Beast is peak YouTube. I think TLC is peak YouTube, because we are using YouTube to build something like a community. And I think that's peak YouTube. I don't know that it monetizes well, especially when Federecci is, Federecci is not in. If you want to have something that's Federecci free, have it in my membership channel, because he doesn't want to let the $1 and 3 that YouTube will get from him. Even though just watching YouTube Federecci and having a channel on it does put money in the pockets of YouTube. Whether you're monetized or not monetized, they'll get their money out of you. That's the way it is. Well, I'm gonna get to the end of the questions. Okay. It's only 11:10. See my little number up here, which when it's up there, you can't see it. When I also stream to Twitter, that number gets bigger. I think Twitter's so. Oh, by the way, there's a video going around talking about how Twitter's going to start sort of their own competitor to YouTube. And it's from a tech site. And the title of the video is XTube. And I thought, oh yeah, Twitter changed their name to X. Twitter's going to compete with YouTube. So they're going to call it XTube. So I naively typed XTube into my browser. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because after I did it and saw where it landed me, and I thought, oh yeah, of course someone else would take that domain. But anyway, the number's really low this live stream compared to what it often is. Usually it's in the 500, 600, 700s, and now it's like only 273, which means that not a lot of people are watching this live stream. This is a small live stream. You know what that means? That means we can play more. That means we can do fun things because, it's just us. All right. One more question. In a video from years ago, when you were going off a video of Peter Thiel and Eric Weinstein, Thiel was speaking about Girard and how communism lost its power when the killing stopped. You said that the book of Ezekiel knew this. Yeah. What did you mean by this? I can't really see it while reading that book. Well, maybe I'm a bad exegete. But one of the things that Ezekiel makes clear is that what goes on in the temple gets played out in the streets. And in the book of Ezekiel, he has all of these visions of the temple being corrupted. And if the temple is corrupt, the streets have no chance. And that's why you need How are you going to fight this, Jacob? Huh? How are you going to fight this? Are you going to give me $300 to upsell, upcycle? Oh. So, and that's true. And the problem with communism Why was communism corrupt at the center? Now, there's plenty of corruption. Just read history. There's plenty of corruption in churches at the center of civilizations. Issues in Orthodox. I mean, why could the communists win the deeply Orthodox country empire of Russia? Think about that. They had a monarch. The Russian Orthodox Church, supremely powerful, revered. Why was Orthodoxy? Why did it get its clock cleaned by communism? Why did Orthodoxy get its clock cleaned by Islam? I'm not saying that to be to troll on Orthodoxy. Maybe Protestantism is going to get its clock cleaned by something else. I don't know. It already has in some ways. It's getting its clock cleaned by secularism, but these aren't unimportant questions. So, yeah. I think part of why communism failed was because it went civilizations that weren't meant for it, like American. Yeah, and I think the answer to PVK's question is the same answer as to why Ukraine is kicking Russian Orthodox out of their country. Okay, well, here, I'll drop it. Right window here. So it's Peugeot is right. Peterson is right. It makes a difference what's at the center of your civilization. And what the American Empire managed to do was have, oh gosh. Poor Jacob. Poor Jacob. Jacob, you're losing. You're losing hard. And China, communism in China is a different thing. But what's interesting about China is that everyone was worried that China was just basically going to kick our butts. And now people are like, no, China's going to implode. And Putin, he's going to go down. Say what you want about democracy. It's a mess. But I think it's more stable. And I think democracy's relationship with Christianity, even Protestant Christianity and liberalism, means something. All right, here they come. Steve was in first. What do you have to say, Steve? Do you have a stable signal? All right. Steve, you're always having difficulties. So, Sam or Neil,
I live in a persecuted state.
You live in a persecuted state? It looks awfully pretty to me. I love those trees.
Yeah, even Elon Musk can't help me out here.
Did you have a question or something you wanted to say?
I don't know why this is. Yeah, well, in the last thing you were talking about, communism, cleaning the clock of orthodoxy. What do you mean by that? What does cleaning the clock mean?
The Russian Revolution succeeded. And that Russian Revolution, I mean, if you read any 20th century history, that Russian Revolution set the tone for all of the stuff that would happen in Europe in the next 40, 50 years. And then it set up the Cold War. And, all the Othra bros running around with their monarchist ideas and all of this stuff.
I did the math one time. Do you know that more people attend the Orthodox Church on a given Sunday in the United States than in Russia? Like church attendance numbers in Russia are like single digits. And so if you look at weekly attendance of Eastern Orthodoxy in the United States on a given Sunday, there are more butts in an Orthodox pew or standing up if they don't have pews than there are in Russia on that same given Sunday.
And if you look at what's in the pews
So it
of
sounds like
Orthodoxy
you mean
in America compared to other Christian denominations, it's tiny.
So yeah, what you mean is the attendance and like the political power or something, or like the cultural influence.
These are the issues that we're dealing with. Protestantism is dealing with like Doug Wilson and Christian nationalism, all of those issues. What's the relationship? And these are the issues that the Catholic Church was dealing with in Italy with Mussolini and during the war and in Germany. So these are super complex things. And so I do not want to rain on anybody's celebration of finding Christ through Orthodoxy in America. God knows I want to bless you all, and I want your tribe to flourish.
No, I'm not taking it that way.
Russia,
I'm not trying to defend the faith. I just wanted to know what you meant because I wasn't clear to me. Like, what did you mean by cleaning the clock? And it sounds like
Russia in 2001, 1.6 million Russians attended Easter.
It's about 1%.
I bet that Chicago might have had more Orthodox attending their Easter service than all of Russia, right? So when people think of Russia as this Eastern Orthodox haven, that's the bastion of the new Rome or whatever like that, and that Orthodoxy gets the last laugh, 1.6 million people on Easter Sunday ain't great. And that does matter for something.
Is that the one that starts in the middle of the night or whatever?
Well, it does start in the middle of the night, but so they have that against them. But it also starts in the middle of the night for Orthodox people here.
All right.
I think the only way Christianity gets the last laugh is when they're being tortured to death. They're like, but I still believe in Christ.
No,
I think that's the only way.
Don't get me wrong. That's the way it is. You've got some heroic Orthodox saints that have endured communism. Rod Dreher writes about them all the time. Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is true too. But the question of civilization,
like
Christianity,
the empires definitely did not last. The Roman,
it's a really complex thing.
None of them lasted, of course. Yeah, I just didn't know what you meant because I'm new, so I don't know, but like it sounds like there's the Rokor because the Russians became infiltrated by communists, and I don't know if the Russian priests were like actually communists, finding out who's coming to church and writing their names down in Stalin's books or something. I don't know.
So again, if you read the history of the Roman Catholics in Germany and Italy, some of those Roman Catholic priests were ardent fascists because fascism was going to make Italy great again. And they were going to stand up against communists and they weren't going to take any crap from anyone. And, I listened to, Eric Weinstein mentions the 2016 Trump thing where there was a heckler in the crowd and some people were taking him out. And Trump says something like, well, in the old days, people knew what to do with people like you. And Eric Weinstein is like, do you really want to raise those spirits? Do you really want lawless violence in a country? And part of the reason, listen to the rest of this history, the rise of fascism, part of how Mussolini got power because he and his black shirts were willing to have violence in the streets. And when push came to shove, the king of Italy, when he was marching to Rome, the king of Italy said, I don't know if we should do anything. The Italian military was ready to lock him up and put him away. And so Mussolini just walks right up and takes power. That's how Mussolini came to power. But the reason he could keep power was because the Pope, who had been losing power steadily for hundreds of years, thought maybe we can make Italy great again. That became a bargain that the Pope would regret. But that sets up Vatican II, and this stuff is super complex. And I don't mean to be dumping
Yeah,
it
I
in
mean,
Catholic
again,
soil.
I'm a beginner, but with my beginner mind, to me, it's that the Pope sounds a whole lot like all the kings in the Old Testament.
Well,
Or the
I think in
patriarchs.
I think in 2016 that Trump felt the need to actively, what's the word, cultivate or dance with the evangelical right through Mike Pence, and Mike Pence was about the most stable, normal, milk
Oh,
toast Christian that you can get, right? So what Trump
I
had in
forgot
26
about him.
what Trump had in 2016 was that I am, everybody knows I'm the furthest thing from a virtuous man, but I'm going to get shit done. That was Trump in 2016. But I'm going to have Mike Pence to show the Christians that I do care about Christian values. And now JD Vance is not Mike Pence. The gloves are off now. Trump's like, I'm going all out. So yeah, it's scary.
All right,
Yeah,
Neil, you
Mike
had
Pence
something.
would be the countervailing force, and it turned out to not really kick in until January 6th.
He was the countervailing force.
Yeah, I have a completely different topic.
Mike Pence.
Well, before we switch topics, I wanted to mention something about, you were talking about why Orthodoxy wasn't able to stand against Islam or against communism, and the Church Fathers have said it's because of the corruption of the society at the time. Like, they had become so corrupt that they needed to be cleansed, and the blood of the martyrs is how Christ cleanses his church.
Yeah.
And
like
there was one story. There was one story I wanted to share on that regard. After Mehmet conquered Constantinople, he was tormented by a dream, and he kept having the same dream every night. And it was, he just saw a hand holding up 5 fingers, and he asked all of his advisors what it meant, and he kept going wider and wider circle trying to find someone who could understand his dream, and no one could interpret it. And then some of his leaders tracked down the abbot of one of the monasteries that was in Constantinople, and he was one of the few Orthodox people who hadn't fled. And they brought him to the palace, and Mehmet asked him if he could interpret this dream, and the monk said he would need 3 days to pray and fast. He did, and when he came back, he said, "The dream you're seeing, those 5 fingers represent the 5 faithful Orthodox Christians who would have prevented your takeover of this city had they existed in the city, had they lived in the city. But because there were not even 5, you were allowed to conquer the city."
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Old Testament again. Anyway, to me, that's like the first temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed. There's all the other stories that I haven't read yet or heard or watched, like a shitty movie made about from the Old Testament. But it's just like, it just keeps happening and happening and happening. The point is, as far as I know, Judaism stayed the same, and Orthodoxy claims to be the same. I haven't found any evidence that it's completely changed. I don't know, but like, that's, God's the same, Jesus is the same, but like, that particular group with their particular type of funny hat might have been destroyed, but like the other guys with their different kind of funny hats, they're still around. But the, like, who God is, who Jesus is, what Christianity is, what we're supposed to do, that hasn't been changed, and maybe when a country or a nation or whatever, a parish does less of what they're supposed to do, they completely fall apart. Maybe when they do exactly what they're supposed to do, they all like die from a plague, but they praise God the whole time. I don't know. But
all right.
Neil
apparently is here on a mission.
Just wanted to know technically what you meant by that.
Right,
like,
I understand.
Neil
apparently is here on a mission. What's your mission, Neil?
I'm not on a mission per se, but I do want to crowdsource this question. So I live a relatively sheltered life. I work from home. I work in IT. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia this week, visiting a friend, which I'm not going to be able to attend Northwestuary because of that. But in Vancouver, it has exemplified for me the switch of the center and the fringe, in that the fringe is on every street corner, on every street that you walk down. It's the new fringe, open heroin users, fentanyl, God knows what else. Like, I walk by like a pile of poop, like on the sidewalk, at some point, and it's just a normal street. And there's no crime, like there's no, it's very safe per se.
Because they're Canadians.
Yeah, so you have this this society. Well, it's extremely interesting to me because you have this society where even, let's say, the lower working class is rich comparatively. Like, they're living a very rich life, like access to amenities, transportation, free tennis courts, all this stuff, And then if either you have nothing, either you're the lowest of the low, and you're trapped in whatever that world is, or you're living in paradise. And thanks, Luke. I do have the ability not to curse between the hours of 12 and 2. No, but it's such a weird dichotomy in that you basically have this underclass that no one knows what to do with and how to approach, and you have the new center where painted on these church steps are, it's something like the words like 70 countries around the world, actively in law discriminate against LGBT, and so there's a new center, there's a new fringe. Nobody has any idea how to address homelessness, and this is kind of a question for Chad as well. Like, I'm really curious, and I'm so sheltered on this. For the typical homeless person, or for like the 90% case, what is their story that gets them to that place? Like, is it purely a problem of frame, where if somehow their frame changed, immediately their life would begin to go up, or is it much worse than that?
Well, there's so many different. I mean, homelessness is, all of these things have selection issues, because most homeless people I never see, because they'll lose, and then they'll might be staying with a friend, or they might be in a shelter, and they might get in a program. I'll never see. I see, and what most people see as homeless in this area. So recently, there's a guy, called himself the General. He used to drive around in a big Suburban. He'd collect trash. Hoarding with this community is a big deal. And he'd collect all this stuff. He's got this Suburban full of trash, and then he lost his license, and he lost his car because he's an alcoholic. Because every time I talk to him, he's always smelling of alcohol. And then, like, he wanted to do like some things for me at the church, and he was doing things for the church across the street, and then he was living in a duplex, and then he tells me, I had to kick out my old lady because, and I'm thinking, that's not the whole story. Sure enough, then I saw all the garbage on the street, and I knew that someone had gotten evicted, because that's the sure sign. And then recently he was living outside over here. And so in almost all the cases that I know personally, there's mental illness, substance abuse, or some combination involved. But that's a segment of the dynamic. And it's a particularly difficult segment, because all the segments have fringes too. And so, the General's around, and lately he had to move because the city, California, in its kindness, has now decided that instead of being completely permissive of anything, now they are going to therapize everyone. And so the Democrats have finally figured out that their supposed mercy is no mercy at all. And so now people are getting arrested, and encampments are cleared. And so there's a new regime. And so now they're moving around more. But if you know, like, the individuals, and you know their stories, and you can track them, you can get a window into certain systems. And because some people call it homelessness, some people call it camping. I do it a few times a year. Am I homeless? So, I mean, it's just a very difficult thing to engage. But to me, this all boils down to the fact that the more organic systems that were supposed to hold people who have some pretty serious distress cannot hold. And the professional medical and therapeutic systems can only get at certain aspects of it. So I'm sure Jacob will have something he wants to say about this, because this is something that Jacob has a lot of experience about and cares a lot about. So, but the state can't do it. The state can play a role, and sometimes a helpful role, but it's tremendously hard.
Believe it or not, the mental health industry is spending a lot of time trying to define what mental health is. And on Rogan, Peterson gave a beautiful definition, which I think really helps. He said, mental health is the harmony of your existence in relationship to the future and other people. And the number one problem that a lot of what we call chronic homeless, because like Paul said, right, the first step towards becoming chronic homeless is oftentimes somebody who has a full-time job, is at least in Los Angeles, living in their car, has a gym membership and a PO box and a cell phone, right? And you are interacting with this person and not knowing this person is on their way to becoming homeless, right? And so, like, this person is in deep disharmony with other people and their future self, right? And yeah, part of it is there does need to be a social, like, and spiritual solution. Plug for Fountain of Comfort, but no, I mean, honestly, this is a deep problem that if people are actually serious about helping, and I guess, I mean, this kind of is a segue to the only reason I came up was I wanted to ask Paul to explain to me the parable of the talents, because it appears to me that ever since boomerality has taken over our society, we no longer talk about a God who says, if you bury your talents, you will have gnashing of teeth.
There's no explaining anything to you, Jacob. I've learned that a long time ago. We all, God has given us talents, and we have to use our talents. But those who have the talents also have to use them in the ways that the people that they think their talents should be used. And they might be right and they might be wrong about that. But yeah. And thank you, Michael. Michael deserves the applause for the boomerality. I've been using that up and down. I don't know if he's still lurking on Voices or not, but it's Michael.
I usually check in there, but
Michael gets the credit for that. So good job, Michael.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in.
Nice dog, Michael.
To show off our new puppy.
Oh.
So, and
puppy's name?
His name is Finn.
Finn.
And
Hey,
so
Finn.
my wife has been wanting to get another dog for a while, and I told her we were going on vacation. My parents were watching all of our kids, so I said we have to wait until after vacation because it's not fair to get a new dog and then leave him with my parents watching 3 children. And then so while we were on vacation, she started looking, and then she decided that the breed that she wanted was a Cavapoo. That's what he is. And so she prayed. It's a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel and a poodle mix.
Oh, so it doesn't shed.
Yes, because she's allergic to other dogs. So she says,
I thought you said cattle.
Yep. So she says a prayer, and then sometime later that day, a listing pops up, a guy that lives like 5 minutes from her church and has this dog, and he's got to travel for work and he can't take care of him. So we picked him up. So prayer works. Just
great dog.
Even for, and he's a really good boy.
We turn over our dog in November.
Oh.
On one hand, Lab shed a lot. And this dog is very healthy. She sheds a ton, but she is such a great dog. It's gonna hurt to turn this dog over. But Lord willing, this dog will serve somebody because the dog is not going to fail. I don't think it is a super smart dog. So dogs are wonderful. Dogs are wonderful.
Yeah,
nice.
Everything when you're hugging a dog, it's just these questions are less troublesome.
Yes, that's true. That's true. All right, Neil, did we adequately address your question, at least to the degree that we can?
I think so. I guess what I'm really asking is, are the concepts within AA, and I've thought about AA so much since I've gotten to know Chad, but the concepts like hitting rock bottom and the concepts of you have to serve others to save. Sorry, I'm getting echo. The concept that you have to serve others in order to stay sober. Are those universal concepts toward every individual? And what I mean by that is like whatever your vices are, whatever the thing is that is your natural tendency. Everything from gossip.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess a little bit of echo or delay thing. But anyway, I would say based on I know AA very well, and I'm beginning to learn about Christianity, one type of Christianity at least. But so alcoholism, and I think what drives a lot of people to homelessness as well, regardless if it's an actual addiction or disharmony, I think that was the word that was used, disharmony with other people. I think what I'm starting to really see is that's I don't, it's just gonna be so judgmental and controversial to say this, but I don't know any other way to say it. But that's all sin, and a Christian life, a life following the commandments of Jesus, that kind of thing, is the redemption from sin. Prayer, which if nothing else, it's like, I'm not God, and I need help. A surrender to everything else, like power greater than yourself, whatever, or God himself, and a willingness to comply with that and bend your will and bend your life to that. First of all, that solves the harmony problem, the disharmony. It solves the resentment. Like, my ex-wife ruined my life and that's why I'm homeless. It's like, maybe she ruined your life, and forgive her and get on your feet. Don't bury your talents, invest your talents. All of that gets people out of that. And that's what I've seen in AA. With new eyes, with the Christian eyes, I'm looking at the steps. There's no question in my mind that's exactly what they're getting at. And luckily for someone like me 24 years ago, they never hinted that this is what Jesus Christ told you to do, because I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, it's like, you turn, your self-centered thinking on yourself briefly to look at, like, how much of a scalawag am I? And I'm the cause of my problems, like, I'm going to have pestilence. I'm going to have a bad ex-wife. I'm going to, and, a little bit more subtly, you recognize, like, well, I was a coward and didn't stand up for myself. And that's how I got myself into this horrible situation. But you see all those things and you repent of those things. You start addressing those things, not in some kind of Tony Robbins, like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps sense, but in a, I'm going to start following God's will. And there's some people whose chemistry, maybe it's not possible for them to even ever understand that or see things that way. That's a very small group in the world. But the tremendous amount of people who are suffering terribly from, if it's not alcoholism, it's something else, but it's basically the same thing. I've seen it happen. I've seen it myself, but I've seen it in many, many people over 24 years. And I've seen what happens when people were doing it and then they stopped doing it, like myself and many others. I never drank again, but man, I went into, homelessness was that close, and I was sober.
Yeah.
12 years into sobriety.
All
So,
right.
I'll just say there's no one solution to the problem of thousands of people.
Right.
Yep. Millions.
Yep. That's right. All right. Our corner citizen, Mr. Allen, what say you? You came into this august collection.
Are you calling me old looking? You don't know how old I am.
We're not hearing anything from your lips, and you're not muted. So that fancy headphone.
Switch
no,
off
we're still not. Oh,
now you muted yourself. Go ahead.
Enough!
Michael, did you have a topic while we're waiting for Alan to?
Or are you just showing us
sort
the
himself
dog?
out?
Well, I did
My
have a
language.
very specific Torah question that possibly Jacob can answer if you don't know, Paul. I don't know.
Jacob doesn't have a channel of his own. You got to come on.
I was about to jump off.
Well, I was actually thinking if I just said before Jacob came on, I was thinking, well, Yosef is probably watching, so if I ask the question, he can tell me later. But my question was, so in the Book of Numbers, they're giving all these like for the Feast of Tabernacles, like sacrifice 14 bulls and 6 rams and whatever, how many lambs. So who is that group of sacrifices for? Is that like a tribe thing or a clan or like is that for it's not a lot for the whole nation because they're supposed to eat it, but
right. So actually, many of those are for the entire world. Especially, I mean, if you're talking about the sacrifices that come during the Festival of Booths, they add up to 70, which is the Jewish number for the number of nations in the world, right? So when we refer to the Goyim, right, we're actually referring to the 70 nations. And if you add it up, it actually comes up to 70.
Okay, so that's like the official what the priests do, and then everybody else just brings their other animals for the barbecue or whatever.
Right. So, I mean, again, so like the temple is not as completely central to Pharisaic Judaism as it was to Sadducees and it appears some Christians. In that, like the way we read Isaiah is God said, you're putting too much emphasis on these sacrifices. You seem to think these sacrifices are the most important thing. And that's not true. And that's Isaiah from chapter 1 through 66.
Yeah. But I mean, I was just thinking because except for there's one goat that's a sin offering, but the rest of it you're supposed to eat. So that's a lot of food. So how many people is that supposed to be for? But if it's for the nation, it's like symbolic, right? So
it's for all the world.
Okay.
What, Steve?
And my ravenous hunger for beef is like half of the world. So you just need a couple guys like me and you're good to go.
All right, there we go. All right, Alan, have you gotten your situation resolved? Can we hear you?
We'll find out right now.
Yay!
Hey, there he is. What say you?
God heals. I guess I somewhat had an axe to grind with you, Paul. In one of your videos, you seemed to indicate that there were people you felt would rather be in a certain church, a certain hate organization church, than like loving their neighbors. And so I'm sure that was said somewhat not completely somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but the Westboro, you brought up the Westboro Baptist Church, but you sort of pinned love and order as sort of opposites of one another, of like people would rather have order than they'd have love. And
maybe love and tyranny as opposites.
Or excessive order. But I'm just such a believer that order, proper order gives rise and they're complementary goods. And that, I look around, New York City, 30 years old, is if anything, this is absolutely a lack of order going on.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just my experience, but not trying to pin love and order as obviously they need to be balanced and one can't overtake the other.
Yeah. But I did find it interesting that when you listen to what's her name, who grew up at Westboro Baptist, that when she looks back at her life, even though we would look at that community as just being absolutely diabolical because of the kinds of things that they do, there was a degree of community in there. And I mean, the world is weird like that. Like, again, the situation of a woman who grows up in the Jim Crow South in a poor family in Mississippi. There are goods in there that even Jim Crow can't get rid of. And so it was interesting, sort of the contrast that Megan Phelps, that's her name, that Megan grows up in this place that blesses her in some ways. It's a really interesting dynamic. But that gets to what Jacob was talking about in terms of there's so much complexity to life. And it's like, well, we're going to do this one thing to solve homelessness. Well, homelessness is not one thing. And I've seen people try AA a dozen times and it never sticks. And you can say, well, they haven't really tried it or they haven't really done it, or but humanity is just super complex that way. And you can't really sort of dispel that. So, all right. Alan ground his axe. Kale is here, and I am wearing my khaki cargo shorts. I don't have any. I don't wear cutoffs. I gave that up in the 80s. So
thank you.
That's so big of you, Paul. We're all and proud we all are, and proud we are of all of you. So welcome. It's good to see everybody. I hope I get to see some of you folks next weekend. Very excited about that. Be making my way up there. But I wondered, this question occurred to me while you all were talking, and it's something I was listening to this morning. But do you think that the homelessness problem that seems to have exploded is a result of some kind of being busted open by sort of the Dunbar number phenomena, right? That our sort of build out of civilization has exploded all of us well beyond the Dunbar number. We tend to think of that in terms of, we tend to think about that in terms of the internet and social media, so that I've got, 1,000 friends on Facebook, but
can you explain to the folks at home the Dunbar number?
I mean, as I understand it, the Dunbar numbers, there's a sort of a basically a finite and relatively small number of people that you can actually know. Again, there's a like loaded word, no. Yeah, something like that. And some people will put the number at about 150. Some people will put it to 200, but you can kind of know, the size of a small school, that kind of thing. Now, but so we tend to think of that number as a phenomena of social media, but I wonder if it is preceded by the radical urbanization that we see beginning in the early 19th century and exploding in the aftermath of the First World War. And you see that in a bunch of different places, right? So that so the cities act as some kind of like magnet that sort of jams a bunch of people in close proximity to it, and there's a certain kind of sensitive person that cannot filter out unnecessary information, unnecessary data.
But I want to bring one more data point into this scale. So the data point I have is visiting Japan and South Korea relatively recently, in that they have the real question I have, their homeless rates are very low. They do have it, but it's very, very low. And so part of that might be South Korea is, for all intents and purposes, an island, because you got the North Korean DMZ. Drugs have a very difficult time getting in South Korea. I think it's probably similar for Japan, maybe a little bit easier for Japan. So part of it might be that it's just so difficult to get substances in. But
it's also hyper homogenous.
Yes.
Oh, so the homogeneity that is such an interesting vein to explore, because it's something like
love your neighbor.
Dunbar number.
It's easy to see who your neighbor is in Japan and Korea.
The family, the social dynamics with the homogeneity, I suspect, have something to do with it.
And I think related to the Dunbar number is also, and you talk about, while Japan has the largest city in the world, in Tokyo, and so it's not necessarily related to the growth, to Neil's point, but there are other differentiating factors, like you were talking about with the homogeneity. And I think the other piece is, even with like the system or mother government trying to be the fix all answer, is that's also like the atomization of the individual, where in those other countries, they're not just more they have stronger familial binds. There's expectations to take care of your grandparents whenever they reach a certain age, and we're trying to fix every individual problem. Like, we've got to fix every homeless person is an individual problem we have to fix, when there's relationships and families and all sorts of other people, are not just an individual homeless person.
So if I can add this, I lived there for 6 years, and one of the things that shocks me is that they don't have, just in Tokyo, they don't have individual rights. I was scandalized by that. And anyway, I'm getting older, I think, but other influences, I'm realizing, like, their conformity and their what I would call fascism several years ago is a real asset, and it's not the corporatism. I just mean all the schools teach the same way. So the whole country, you learn the same thing. Like the way they teach the children to deal with shoes in the classroom, and the way they teach these different things, it's homogenized. And a big part of what they're being taught is like, you don't matter, everyone matters, you don't. And it's like, maybe that was the right way to go. And and they have people jumping in front of trains because they're overworking, so they're
right.
They have problems too.
They lock the mentally ill up very quickly.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that, I think, is a big deal. We pretend that that's not part of the issue. And then secondly, you look at
I'm sorry to interrupt, but they don't give them the right to cause disruptions in the train station.
That's right. I mean, they're just taking it away.
Yeah.
People are going to get mad at me at saying this, but this is an incredibly complex issue that has been studied. Michael Schellenberger wrote a book, San Francisco, where he talks about the actual problem, which is the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I lived there, and
but I just want to add,
is not an inaccurate word, man.
I just want to add, so the homogeneity is a big deal. The willingness to incarcerate the mentally ill, or whatever you want to call that, just put them away, basically. But thirdly, you do also have to look at sort of the relative health of these places, right? So you could say, oh well, Tokyo is the largest city in the world, and you're right. I'm not arguing that point, but is it a healthy one, right? And I think what Jacob brought up, invoking.
What do you mean by health?
Right. So invoking Jacob's invocation of Peterson. There's this. Are they a culture? Let's say is it a city culture that is in harmony with each other, and is it in harmony with its future? And to me, the great tell of any group of people who are in harmony with their future, both individually and corporately, is demographic collapse. And you look at South Korea, you look at Japan, you look at us, for God's sakes, right? But really, it hits home there. They do not have a future, and so
China just ended
they've got order. Adoption. What's that?
China just ended international adoption.
Yeah.
How far out?
Yeah. All right, Christian.
So the homogeneity, by the way, is not just racial. It's like values,
cultural homogeneity.
Yeah.
All right, Christian, you're next.
So I did what I came on here actually to talk about is my beef with Kale on his comment on Tim Keller on Twitter. I don't know if you saw my response to that. But it was also because
people are coming on the channel to talk to Jacob. Now you got to beef with Kale on Twitter, and you're coming here for that.
I'm gonna sacrifice.
You talked about Keller's influence on you earlier in your stream. That's why I wanted to kind of parse that together.
Well, I can tell you what I meant.
That's fine. But I was just gonna say, I think that we're in an interesting time with someone is making noise. I don't know. Y'all hear that?
It's Steve. He's always the one making noise.
No, maybe.
No, it's Michael.
Sorry.
Yeah. Cool. So Keller, interesting figure on the response to he had a big impact on me as far as being. I wouldn't say so much as he's my Pope, Kale, but I would say that he did have an impact, and I, in a time that we are no longer in, with regards to our culture, and so that's one thing, and the other piece on that, which is what's happening right now, I guess, with Megan Basham. That was kind of look, there's Keller right there. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about the Keller thing. When Kel came in, it kind of like skewed my thinking on that because I responded to him on Twitter.
I mean, I'll tell you what I was thinking. I have no personal beef with Keller. I think Keller's basically a net good. And I have not done a deep dive in Keller. I've seen a lot of the clips that Paul has played, etc. I think he's basically good. I just think it's interesting to me as a Catholic who has a pope, right, and who has a complicated relationship with the current occupant, that I get the sense that my Protestant brothers and sisters and my other Protestant brothers and sisters called the Orthodox, sorry, I had to do that. I'm kidding, I know, but that everybody's got something that functions like a pope, right? And none of us, and so there's a certain logic, there's a certain logical necessity that a person embodies a kind of keeps the body together, and that's this kind of Pageauian sense, right? And so I don't know if any of you all saw the Pageau-Barron thing, but Barron kind of pushed him on this whole notion of the logical necessity in the sort of the symbolic order for a pope figure. And as a Catholic, and I watch all my friends in all the various denominations and churches and confessions, everybody has some figure that functions for them like a pope. So again, not a beef with Keller. I think Protestants are, my friends, you are particularly blind to the fact that you just have substitute popes. That's all.
All right.
Implicit versus explicit.
Like Paul.
I would just
Paul's
say,
Pope of the corner.
I would, yeah.
I thought Chad was Pope.
I would just say to that
we have two popes.
And that
Keller,
the Pope, the
back in
Pope
Avalon,
of Big Eva is dead.
The Pope what?
The Pope of Big Eva. It's interesting to me that the Pope of Big Eva is dead.
I would say Lewis is more the Pope of Big. Like if there's like an enduring spirit, I mean,
Graham.
I would say something like Lewis. Keller embodied more of a C.S. Lewis than as kind of a patron saint. I would say something more like a patron saint. Michael, I think that's still coming, or somebody.
That was Michael.
Yeah.
He was noisy this morning on Chad's stream. All right. Mark D. Parker has come into the room, and someone prophesied in the hive mind that he will set us straight.
No pressure. Okay, first, can you hear me? Because I'm on a marginal 5G signal because my Fios is dead.
We hear
you. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
5G is pretty good.
Here's a question for Paul, and I'm going to follow your lead on this. Because, okay, we got many half-truths and unestablished, unproven assertions are put forward in the corner as facts. I entered the corner kind of thinking I'll keep my focus on Jesus and kind of let the half-truths sort themselves out. But the deeper I get into this, the more it feels like I'm at the Battle of the Somme and the mud is knee-deep.
Oh, boy.
And it's very hard to move because it's so thick and so crappy. I'm getting trench foot. So
you and Jacob are like the same person, but the other sides of each other.
Yeah, thank God for your service.
Keep going.
So my question to you, Paul, as Pope, is should I simply neglect the half-truths? As the old Yiddish saying goes, a half-truth is a full lie. But should I just simply neglect the half-truths and the baseless assertions and focus more whimsically, trust on God to smite my enemies and set everyone straight on their own timing, on his timing, or should I actually push back on the lies and on the half truths and on the propaganda? Like the Democrats are all to blame. Like, and should I finish my reading? I began watching Michael's very popular Boomerality video, the first one. I've gone through them all privately, but I was trying to work through it publicly, and I saw the stress in the comments. I mean, at least I felt it. Maybe I am reading something into it that's there, but I got some private and public reaction to my response as I just worked through it piece by piece by piece. And everyone said, just watch to the end, watch to the end. Well, I mean, it took 2 hours or 2.5 hours to get through half of it. So I'll take another 2.5 hours to get through the other half, and then there's still another video to work through. Or should I simply stop the project altogether, go back to the book of Romans, or talk about charismania and prayer and healing and all the things I really would rather talk about? But okay,
Short
the
question.
says
One question. I just have one question. Mark, is it possible that you might have your facts wrong?
Oh, please. Have you learned nothing from 5 years of Peugeot in the corner and the fact thing? I mean,
let me quote a famous YouTuber. Let me quote a famous YouTuber. She's trans. She's trans. I think it's called Philosophy Tube, and she said, and it was really brilliant. She says, "We're all wrong. The goal is to be wrong in entertaining ways, and I think, or interesting ways. Excuse me, interesting ways."
Wow.
And it's actually, I think that's more true than false, because if there's anyone right, who's right in Christendom? If you're going to be right, I mean, is it the Catholics? Is it Westboro Baptist?
What is truth in Christendom? Who's the person who asked what is truth in Christendom?
Okay.
See, Jacob baits me, and then I feel like I have to answer Jacob. Should I not even bother answering Jacob?
Just you and me, Mark. Just you and me. Okay. Just you. Yeah, everybody can stay down there. I'll bring you back in. Just you and me, Mark. Okay.
Okay.
Just you and me.
Okay.
Keep going with what you're doing. You're doing just fine. I mean, I understand the desire to. I don't think. Like Jacob says, I came on here for you to explain something to me. Don't take the bait. You can't explain anything to Jacob. He's not explainable. So don't bother trying. Keep, Mark, you bring to the corner something unique. You have a very interesting story, a very unique story. And we need our poles at the corner, and you and Jacob are kind of the poles, and sometimes those poles kind of come around and meet. So just keep doing what you're doing and engage Michael on his boomerality, because there's definite pushback that can be done. I mean, the truth is, with everything, there's something to learn. And I'm a Calvinist, which means that even our best attempts at sort of grasping at truth fail at some level. So that's the humility involved. So but the main goal of your master is to love your neighbor, and your neighbor includes Jacob and Michael and all of these crazy conservatives in the corner. And so just figure out how to love them as best you can, and everything beyond that, is you just leave up to God. So
Paul, you just insulted me in a really horrible way. You said you cannot explain anything to Jacob. So I'm that dumb?
No. It's not that you're dumb. You're not dumb at all. No, that's not true. I'm Jacob. I only talk this way to people I really love a lot.
This is better. This is better than WrestleMania.
Jacob, I'm from New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey.
If I can,
yes, Jacob, you do learn, and you are in some ways my best disciple, but you are also Peterish sometimes. So
I think
What,
how we
denying
should
Christ?
refer to Jacob repeatedly is truly his name is Jacob. Surely his name is Jacob. Because the essence of Jacob in the corner is even if he agrees with you, he will fight you on something that he agrees with. And I was talking to Jacob about this because right before he posted his Christians behaving badly, I think it was 24 hours after that Chad dropped the news video thing where I made a joke about Jacob getting into a debate with his own reflection. And I recorded that joke. I recorded that joke a month before Chad released that video. So it just so happened, planets aligned, that whenever I try to explain Jacob to other people, is I say, truly his name is Jacob. Surely, like, is that what you thought you were going to come here and not fight him? Like, there's an expression. Please forgive the unkosher animal, Jacob. But it's debating Jacob is like mud wrestling a pig. Is that after 20 minutes, you're completely filthy and you realize that the pig actually likes it.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
I have to say,
That's why I felt so dirty after estuary and Chino. I took the longest shower in the last 10 years after that. Sorry, I'm kidding.
I have to say, I do struggle with myself more than with anybody else.
You know, I agree a lot with what you say, and I respect you. And you know, I just don't explain that because you will probably debate where is the margin of my agreement and my respect? And I'm like, I'm fine with just leaving it vague. You know, in other words, I don't want to argue with you about how much I agree with you. My brother's similar, so luckily I had, you know, decades of experience in having a relationship with a disagreeable Jacob type of figure.
Most of
I
you
don't
have
want to
no
get
idea
my hip broken.
how many people over the years have told me you should not talk about Jacob. You should not talk to Jacob. You should avoid Jacob. Jacob is a liability. They've told me all of those things. And yet I don't know.
I will agree you should not talk about Jacob because ultimately, Paul, the question was, what is truth? And I think hopefully you have an answer, Paul.
You see, here's the funny thing about Jacob. You can't even compliment him without getting pushback. You nailed him, David. Yeah. You nailed him.
The answer to truth,
it's his own name. It's his own
name. The answer to truth.
This was predestined before the foundations of the world, Paul. You of all people should know that.
Yeah.
Jesus lives. That's the answer to what is truth. Now that you have to grapple with.
Well,
because
the way I look at it is, you know, if you think imperial measurements, you know, the truth is an inch, but like there's a lot of space in that inch. So let's say it's a half inch. There's still a lot of space. So you know, eventually you're going down to infinity in splitting, like dividing the truth, you know? And
now we got to land. We got to land the plane here because I mean, heaven forbid, Freddie watched this live stream and now he's going to come at the church pounding on the door for hundreds of dollars. So, last things that you want to say. Mark Parker, you go first.
I'll work on all this, Paul, and I'll try to be a good citizen and member of the corner.
Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. I watch. You've got one of the smaller channels, but I watch your channel pretty regularly. So,
okay. Did you see my little short? Did it communicate to you at all? Did you see that little short I made? I sent you a link. I actually emailed you with it. Only time I've ever done that. The little 2-minute music video thing.
Yeah.
It's a little weird. It's a little different. It was an experiment. But anyway. All right. Thank you.
All right. Judaizing Pharisee, your last word to us.
So we've talked a lot about propositional tyranny. Propositional tyranny is definitely a problem. you cannot get rid of the importance of the propositional. And just because something is an idol doesn't mean you need to smash the idol. If it's something that's necessary and important, that means you cannot smash that idol.
Agreed. Great word, Jacob. Appreciate it. You can fight me later on it. David, last word from you. You didn't even get to bring up a topic. You came in so late.
That's fine. Yeah, it's that wrestling is the most exhausting thing you can possibly do, but it as a result of that, it is the best cardio. It's the best thing to keep you healthy. It's the thing. It is where the term catfish actually comes from. Is that they would put catfish, a live catfish, in with these carp that would be attacking them while they were being transported. But if they didn't throw the catfish in, all the other fish would just be sitting and they would basically be bad by the time they arrived. So we need to wrestle, despite the fact that the pig likes it more than us. It's quite necessary.
All right, good. Steve, what your last word? What do you have for us?
I guess I started this conversation on this channel. I heard something that I thought, oh, that's doesn't seem right to me, and I came here. What do you mean by that? Explain it. And it turns out what I heard was not what was meant, and through that I learned more. And also I recognize I don't have all the answers, and I turn out I think I agree, or I can accept what you were saying, which is potentially it's against me and against what I've decided to put my life towards, as opposed to just leaving it as, well, what you've just said is a heresy, or what you just said is like, well, that's wrong. And maybe growing up with a guy like Jacob helped teach me how to do that. But anyway, I have the world is not against me. And I think that's the only reason why, is because I'm able to recognize that I don't have the answers, and I may be seeing things wrong just as much as everybody else. And so explain yourself. All right. And anyway, that's one way I can get harmony. Maybe it's the Japanese that taught me that, but I think, my brother taught me that. Anyway.
All right. Very good. Now, I just dropped the Bridges of Meaning invite link into there. Often after the live stream, there's a voice chat. And if you want to go to BoM and hop in the voice chat, there'll be different chat rooms. I might go into there depending on if Freddie stops by and demands hundreds of dollars from me. Yeah, did they get Pastor Paul? Where's my money? I heard a story recently of a woman who she wanted to retire, and she told a family member, and the family member said, well, go down to the Social Security office and tell them to turn on your Social Security. So she went down to the Social Security office, told them to turn on the Social Security, went back to her office, quit her job, walked home, and then the check didn't show up. And I know, Mark's like, oh no. And her relative was like, it takes them a while. They're the government. It takes them a while to actually send you the money. So, Freddie, you're going to be on the drip here, okay? It's going to be little money at a time, and I'm not the mobile ATM. You got to make your way to church to get it. So that's part of my retraining Freddie. So anyway, Christian, you get the prized last word. Oh,
well, I think something about truth, something about that. I guess maybe there's a priority level with the truth, and we're talking about the propositional truth. Like, I think that underneath it has to start with becoming like a truthful and a true person. That has to undergird the power of the proposition, or else it's hypocrisy. And that's been my experience. I wanted to write a whole album based on, is God real and true, while I was being an unfaithful and untruthful person. So,
all right. Well, that then settles it. And I will end this this live stream with some. Let's pick the go to church branding. So here we are.
The catchphrase I say go to church. And what I mean by that is, in some ways, it's you have to engage in the human relationships around you. That's like the best way to go about that. You know, you have relationship, you have a family, you have some kind of community around you, and so that's the best place to go, because in some ways that's the place that will have this procedural aspect to it that will ground the other stuff. You know, it's like if you have to, you know, to help your kids with their homework, or you have to do this kind of really grounded stuff that has very little to do with the ideology. You get engaged in other people's lives, then it binds you in a different way, right? It binds you.
And then like my father would, he was going to church, and I wasn't really living with him, but he was going to church, and he would like kind of, those are elements of this conversation. I got to go to church.
It's being part of a church is part of Christian discipleship. And in that word discipleship, there's this word discipline, which is, it's a discipline to go to church.
What would be so great about actually going to a church is like you start going to a church so that when you do need like to be prayed for, when you have something to be prayed for about, you have a place to just say that.
You're dead on right, Grizz, and that is what the church is for. To know and be known, to love and be loved, to have a place to go where people can pray for you, where they will welcome you in. And this is, again, part of why I want churches to have estuaries, because it is, I know that it is difficult in many churches for people to, in a sense, come in and bring their real self. And what I mean by that, people have to say what's on their mind, or you can't wrestle with them. It's like, so Plato, as John reminds us, is broad, so he's a wrestler. You can't wrestle over a screen. So maybe if it's paintball for Jesus, maybe it should be wrestling with Plato. Because, and in church, in a real space, now often it doesn't happen. I understand that, but at least there's a chance to actually have a relationship with grit. And that's part of why churches are local. They're relational, they're face-to-face, they're in real life.
Said about why would young people want to go to church, and I feel like I want to have some kind of dynamic message or something that if they do find some reason to come, I'm trying to fish, so I'm throwing bait and I'm trying to hook somebody. It's what Paul is doing too. He said about being evangelical, evangelism of some sort.
Well, fishers of men is the promise.
Yes, correct.
It's possessed. We did go to church today. I took communion.
I don't go to church to think or to rationalize God. I go to church to worship Him. Right? And that's, I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. And afterwards, during coffee hour, we can all argue about the God of our understanding, right? Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think that the wild twin, the thing that led to my sort of dawning to consciousness of Christianity was a 101-day vigil that I did in forest. And I went into the forest.
You don't have to go crazy.
Yeah.
You actually have to go, you have to humble yourself and and do it right here, right now, right?
Get up. I like how Father Schmemann talks about it for the life of the world. He says it starts when you get up and get ready. and you walk or you go to church. You start these. Those are simple. I get up, I brush my teeth, I take a shower, I put on clothes, I go, the things of life, and we're ascending up into heaven. You're
Fast Freddy G knows it all. That's my old name, G.